We have been existing forever, from eternity. We are existing now, and we will continue to exist in future. So Srila Prabhupada and Acharyas, commenting on this verse, they say this is a proof against Mayavad philosophy, because they say, the Mayavadis say, that once the soul attains liberation, he somehow merges with the Lord. And Krishna in this verse, he says, we are eternal individuals. There was never a time when we were not individuals, nor in future will come time when we will cease to be individual persons. And also in this commentary, Srila Prabhupada says that if Krishna was not individual entity, supreme entity, and he was not perfect, then the Bhagavad Gita would not make any sense. Why then we should study Bhagavad Gita? If there was no difference between Krishna, the teacher, and Arjuna, the student, who was in illusion. Arjuna was in illusion in the beginning by Krishna's desire. If there is no difference between them, if they are on equal level, then why should we learn from Krishna's instructions in Bhagavad Gita? That means he's also conditioned soul. So the teacher should know and the student should learn from the teacher. They are not equal. Of course, the Mayavadis, they also have arguments, and one of their arguments, trying to get away with this, is that somehow the teacher, when he teaches, although he's liberated, somehow he maintains this duality vision that there is difference between him and the disciple. Although ultimately he understands that all this duality is illusion. There is no difference between him and the disciple. But somehow, like a residual ignorance remains in his consciousness that there is duality, there is me and there is my student, and therefore teaching happens. And the Vaishnavacharyas, they have of course answered this argument. They say, even if for argument's sake we accept that this is true, still teaching cannot take place. Just like if you're in a desert and you happen to see a mirage, then you know that this is not real. You see that there is water at a distance, but you know this is unreal. And because you know, you don't go to fetch water from the mirage. So they say that this proves that even if you see duality, then still you cannot continue the process of teaching. I'm not sure if I explained it properly, but this, if you get it, but this type of arguments between the Vaishnavas and the Mayavadis, they go back and forth since thousands of years. And I wanted to speak a little bit on this because if you noticed in Prabhupada's purports, he very often speaks about the Mayavadis. He defeats them. He argues against. So it is our tradition that we have to do the same. It's just like when you join a football team and they tell you this is our rival. If the whole season you may perform average, but this specific match you have to win. So these are our rivals, the Mayavadis, and we have always to attack them. And Mayavadis are ultimately also, we are kind of struggling with the same contamination inside our hearts. Therefore, nirvishesha shunyavadi, paschatya deshtarine. So then, these are the first category mentioned in this verse. And then the second are the demigod worshippers. Srila Prabhupada says, he who concocts some form of the Supreme Lord and worships that. So these people, they take part of the universal form of the Lord, universal Vishvarupa, and they focus on one specific limb and they say this is the Supreme. Why? Krishna explains that because the demigods very quickly satisfy their material desires. So they don't have patience and proper knowledge to approach the Lord. And they want to maintain their material desires. And the third group are the pantheists, those who worship the universal form as God. So they think the universe is God. So for these people, he who accepts the universal form, the Vishvarupa of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For these people, Krishna speaks the next verses. 16, 17, he says, "But it is I who am the ritual, I the sacrifice, the offering to the ancestors, the healing herb, the transcendental chant. I'm the butter and the fire and the offering. I'm the father of this universe, the mother, the support, and the grandsire. I'm the object of knowledge, the purifier, and the syllable Om. I'm also the Rik, the Sama, and the Yajur Vedas. I'm the goal, the sustainer, the master, etc. So I give heat and I withhold and send for the rain." So Krishna tries to elevate these people, their understanding, because they think the universe is God. But Krishna tries to explain that behind the universe there is the origin, the Lord and the Master of the universe, and He is all-pervading in the universe. So instead of seeing the universe as God, better see how God as person is all-pervading and He manifests Himself in the universe. This is higher understanding. It's similar to the first one, but it's higher. So Krishna is trying to elevate also these people. Krishna is very accommodating. He does not reject easily different types of worshippers. He tries to accommodate everyone. If you're worshipping the universal form, Krishna will accept this and will try to elevate your understanding. If you worship the demigods, Krishna will send you a learned Vaishnava, Brahmanas, and while performing your sacrifice for the demigods, they will teach you about the Supreme Lord. Even if you're Mayavadi, Krishna will try to meet you with pure devotees. Just like there is this story from Jaiva Dharma. Was it from Jaiva Dharma? Yes. There was this impersonalist who was in Benares, and he spent many years there studying Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Vedanta, and one day he saw one devotee who was walking on the street, and he was in ecstasy, chanting Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, and then this Mayavadi impersonalist, he was shocked when he saw this devotee. He was so attracted to the devotee that he wanted immediately to go and approach him and ask him, but he was too, what's the word? He was too shy. He didn't do it anyway. So then, and he was very sorry when he missed this opportunity. But then he asked about this devotee, and people told him, "Oh, he's from Mayapur. There is the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya, the Krishna Chaitanya, the last avatar of Krishna." So he went there, and then he took shelter with these Babajis in Navadvip, in Godrum, and then he attained Baba, level of Baba, for 3 days. After 3 days, he was already on the level of Baba, and he got darshan of the real Holy Dham, real Mayapur. It's a very beautiful description in Jaiva Dharma of the real. When we go to Mayapur, this is also the real Mayapur, but we don't see necessarily all the spiritual features of this Dhamma. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna. If you would like to say something, to ask something. Yes, Prabhu.
Well, I've always found this purport interesting. Because Srila Prabhupada, and I didn't read some of the Acharyas' commentaries, I assume he's getting this from certain of the Acharyas, but he's in a very categorical way. He's describing the different spiritual or quasi-spiritual conceptions that some persons have other than pure understanding of Bhakti Yoga. And he also puts them in order.
Yeah.
What's better? What's the next big thing? What's the next big thing? What's the next big thing? There's other places though where Srila may categorize things differently. For example, she'll hear let me see, in the verse, at least the translation of the verse says, one who worships the Supreme Lord as one, without saying, and then in the purport, Srila Prabhupada's elaboration on that is one who worships oneself as the Lord. But we know, and then Srila Prabhupada in the purport categorizes that as the lowest of these three types of persons, demigod worshippers and those who just see the universal form or the material manifestation ultimately is the highest thing. But there's other places where Srila Prabhupada will clearly makes the distinction between the type of Mayavadi who sees himself, that idea that everything is one and not different, then they take that, you could say, to an extreme, and they say that they are non-different from God, which is what Srila Prabhupada is discussing in the purport. But there's others who don't take it to that extreme, and Srila Prabhupada distinguishes it from just them from that proof. And they say their idea is that everything is one, but then they don't make the appropriate leap in logic, which is that if everything's one then you're God. They don't necessarily think that they're God. They say everything's one, but they don't have this idea that they are God necessarily. Logically, if everything's one, then you're God, I'm God, everything, but yet they don't have that sort of conception. And so Prabhupada elsewhere makes the distinction, says these are better. There's those who think that they are God, they're more envious of Krishna. So, I don't know, I guess that's a comment. But then, one thing that's interesting to me, though, that I'm thinking about trying to relate these categories that Srila Prabhupada sets forth in the purport, trying to correlate it to what I in practice in my daily life, the type of beliefs of people with people I encounter in my day-to-day, what are their beliefs? And it's hard for me to necessarily fit them exactly into those categories. And so I was thinking you might comment on that. I'm going to give you a couple of thoughts. I'm not a scholar of other religions, although I've studied religion in school, and as a devotee we learn a lot about other religions, especially if we're scholarly and philosophical. But I think, at least among some of the certain rather serious practitioners within Judaism, my sense from talking to them again and again and again and again is that they do not see this material world as like antithetical or like that it's Maya, that it's illusion, but it's sort of like you should live your life well and enjoy it but under God's teachings. But God exists. I'm not sure if they recognize him as personal, but God exists, but yet this material world, it's the things you do in it are real and meaningful. And we understand things are real here and meaningful too, but for the purpose of using them to help people get out of the material world, which is different. And so I'm trying to fit them into one of these categories, saying on the one hand, it seems like the fact that they value their activities, and I can say all this coming from a Jewish background, so sometimes you're not like supposed to criticize someone of their ethos or their social, their mores or anything. If you don't come from that background, since I do, I can more liberally talk about it perhaps. Although this is philosophy, so we could talk about anything as long as it's not done in a negatively critical way, which I'm not. So I would say on the one hand, because there's this really valuing activities within this material world, not merely for the purpose like ours to help people get out of the material world. To me, that seems like this category of recognizing the universal form, like as, or this material manifestation, almost like the all in all. And then then they're recognizing that there's God. So, which doesn't, to me, that's a combination of one of the categories here, and then there's some lack of clarity if it's ultimately an impersonal conception of God or personal. I've been trying to figure that out for years. And, I'm sure there's different schools, perhaps the more esoteric people who espouse Jewish theology may have a more personal sense, like followers of the Kabbalah, or I remember studying some texts in college, some more esoteric texts, not just from the Old Testament. So they may have some more personal conception, but generally people don't talk about God's, his pastimes and his activities and his loving relationships with each person. No way. So anyway, these are just some thoughts I had because trying to relate, well, and also because I felt like you were being kind, and you were in one sense maybe justifying for those who are like, well, why are we talking about this impersonal stuff? Like, well, as devotees, we're faithful to our spiritual disciplic succession. So since they distinguish between personalism and impersonalism, so we have to teach that too. But I mean, I know that you're also getting very philosophical, and so we understand. And then at the end, you said, yeah, but we have that in our heart too. So I'm trying to bridge the gap between looking at this sort of philosophically, almost academic. It's purely spiritual, so it's not just academic, but yet it seems academic if we can't relate it to the lives we live in today. So I'm trying to bridge that gap between what we see in our daily life and whom we encounter in our daily life and these spiritual teachings, and particularly these verses. So I've said so much, if you don't mind. But I just wanted to
Thank you,
comment on that.
Yeah, what you describe about your contacts with the Jewish teachings reminds me about the Karma Mimamsa philosophy. Now there are 6 Vedic schools, and one of them is called Karma Mimamsa or Purva Mimamsa, and they try to, in pious way, to enjoy all pleasures that the universe can offer. This is their motto, and they also believe in God. But God doesn't do much in their philosophy. They don't really have some deep interest to come in contact with the personal God. For them, even God, if He exists, He is under the, okay, how to spell it? They say that God is obliged to give you the result of your work. If you do pious work, it's His duty to give you the pious result. So, and they just maybe similar to what you described. They are not looking for liberation. They want to stay here in the material universe, and they are convinced that by performing pious work, they will always be in a good situation. So they will be born in heaven. They will go to heaven after they perform their sacrifices, pious activities here. And when the pious credit is exhausted, and they will again take birth here in the pious family, they will again perform punya, and they will go to heaven again. And this is how they envision their future. Just like if you have a very good job, and you can earn for 2 weeks enough money to live like 5 years in a luxury without need to work. And this is what they think. Short human life, just less than 100 years. For this, if you are a good boy, then you'll get thousands, hundreds of thousands of years in heaven. And when this is over, then you'll come again here for 50, 60 years, do quickly some punya, and then go back. So this, what you described reminds me more about this type of philosophy, pious work. And these people are called smartas in India. And I think there are some very obvious similarities between the smartas and the Jewish traditional piety, because they also have religion. The Jewish people, they dress in a certain way. Religion meaning, when I say religion, I don't mean faith. I mean how do you live your life?
Yeah.
The way of dressing, how do you brush your teeth, what is your haircut, how do you go about getting married, all these things. They have this kosher idea about the food also. While the Christians don't really have so much, for them it's more belief in Jesus, and then you don't worry about kosher or whatever. So this is what comes to mind. And the other thing, impersonal, I also, because you mentioned personal or impersonal, I also had this question for a long time. And when I talked to different Christian priests and different people from this tradition, then what I understand is that they say that Jesus is person, but person for them means material. So Jesus is 100% man and 100% God simultaneously. So personhood is in him. The Father is not a person because he's pure spirit. You can never see him, you can never understand him. Nobody has ever seen God, Father. So it's more impersonal.
Yeah.
Somehow they think that person means material and impersonal means spiritual. This is the highest, impersonal. So the Orthodox Christianity is very similar to Advaita Vedanta in this sense, very similar. The arguments that they offer are very similar to the arguments of the Mayavadis. Yeah. Yes.
I think what you said, like, it's interesting. But I think what you said is kind of true. Like in Judaism, that the personal side of like in every aspect. I went to 2 years of Jewish high school, so like Jews, they from the morning to the night, they always give credit to God. Even when they go to the bathroom and everything,
Yeah.
it's God's doing things. So they
Yeah.
have that personal relationship. Maybe what Christians they call Father, to them, to Jews, is more personal, like, because they even have the name for God, which they call Adonai or Hashem. Well, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because your mom doesn't
Oh, mom is not like, no, my parents were not religious either, but in the morning they say Shema Israel, which is God is the King of the universe, God is one. So they totally believe in God as, like, not form particular, but that's more personal, like you said. But yeah, maybe like you said, it's interesting, like, yeah, Christians, they believe that through the Jesus, that he's a person, and God, I don't understand it.
Achinta Beda Beda Tattva. God and man at the same time. 100% God, 100% man. Yes.
Even though Jesus never said he was God.
Yeah. Yes, that's true.
I was just thinking that in this purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that, so we have the first class worshippers of Krishna, and those are the Mahatmas, and they worship directly God as a person, and they don't want anything in return. And then Srila Prabhupada says we have the 4 groups.
The pious people from 7th chapter.
Yes, described in 7th chapter, verse 16, where they also accept God as a person, and they worship God directly, but they want something in return. And then we have these 3 groups.
They're lower than the 4
lower,
types.
because they actually worship God indirectly.
Indirectly, yes.
They don't worship God directly. So indirectly would mean they take something else as God, and okay, so universe is God, or this demigod is God, or I am God. And yes, in some way you can take it that yes, this is also God, so they get some benefit for this. But basically, if you compare with the previous ones, even those who worship God with material motivation,
They're higher. Because they worship Bhagavan. They worship Krishna. Well, these people, they're not really sure what they worship. It's kind of vague concept. Yeah.
I have some
If you
impression, which may be so, may not be so, that like many of the people who are like officially part of, let's say Jewish tradition or Christianity or Muslim tradition, most of them are actually worshipping God, but they want some material stuff.
It's always karma or jnana. That's it. It's either karma or either desire for fruitive result or desire for liberation. And bhakti is very rare.
Like I was, a few days ago, we were coming back from Harinam, and we just happened to sit next to a boy, and apparently he was believer, street musician, guitar player, but he was also a strong believer in the Muslim tradition. So he started talking, and I was asking him, so what is God for you? And he would give a good answers. So yes, God is the supreme, and God is the supreme controller, and He is the creator of the world, and He is the Almighty. All these things similar to our concept. When God is God, when He is the creator. But then, if we address the question, okay, do we have to serve Him conditionally or unconditionally? Well, most people, they'll say, well, what is the problem to take something back? You serve God, but also God can give you something. What is the problem? Whereas our acharyas, they are very particular. No, we do not serve God to get something from Him. We want just to do something for His pleasure. Pure devotion. That's something very... I think Gautam Maharaj in one seminar, he said two things that really distinguish our philosophy from everyone else. The pure chanting of the name. So you chant, you don't want anything in return. And worship of pure devotees. I think these two things he mentioned.
Yes, thank you. So it reminded me about that in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna also says that even those who worship the demigods, they actually worship me, because I give the result. I give the blessings that the demigods give. They're coming from me originally. So this is a very unique concept in the world, because normally if you don't worship the way people think that you should be worshipping, they think you're worshipping the enemy of God. But Krishna says, what was that verse? Devata, Yanya, Yanti Devata, yeah.
This is 9:20.
Bhajante Shradadam Vidha Tepi Mam Eva Kantiya. Krishna says, they actually worship me. Epi Navida Bhajante Shradadam Vidha Tepi Mam Eva Kantiya. Bhajante Avidi Purvakam. Very unique concept.
Which verse?
This is
9:23.
9:23. So they worship me, and it is me who gives faith also. If they want to worship some demigod, some other god, small g, than me, Krishna says, I give the faith and the determination that they dedicate themselves to this deity. A very unique concept. Also, Krishna says that Urdvam Gachanti Sattvasta. If somebody develops the mode of goodness, he goes upward. It doesn't matter if he worships Krishna personally. So that's another very unique idea that you find only in the Vedas, in the Bhagavad Gita, in Bhagavatam. Krishna is not jealous and angry. Okay.
So I'm just trying to bring together points that that you made, Tulsi made, Meru made, I made. You can make distinctions on two different points. One is, what's your conception of the Supreme? Another is, what are you trying to do, assuming you worship have some kind of worship, what are you seeking to achieve? So like those verses in chapter 7:16, which are referenced in Prabhupada's purport to text 15 of chapter 9, are about the 4 types of persons who worship God in devotional service. So they have a personal conception of God, but they have some different types of material motivations. And then here in chapter 9, text 15, we're learning about different conceptions of the ultimate truth that people have. But they're not unrelated topics, distinguishing between what one seeks to achieve in worship and what one's conception of the Supreme is. There's some correlation, there's some connection. Anyway, it's interesting.
I was also thinking about the same. I think there is some subtle connection between how much you worship Krishna with pure motivation and
What's your concept of God?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the more your worship is selfless, the more you will be able to perceive God as a person. It's like in our relationships in this world. When you have relationship with someone, just because you want to get something from him, actually your concept of this person is very, very impersonal. You just try to exploit him. And the more your connection is devoid from this, you'll be able to perceive him as a personality. And you'll have much more personal relationships.
So that point you made brings everything together. And that's where Pandava ended his class before asking questions as well. Where he was saying, but ultimately, after he first he gave like he gave a qualifier for why he gave this class. He said, well, this is what we do. So he said, well, actually, it's like the impersonal, we're impersonal. And there's one place where Srila Prabhupada, right, there was some, I forget what it was, I think there was some class Srila Prabhupada is giving with someone, and they're asking some questions, like, Srila Prabhupada says, you're the impersonal. So in Sangha devotees who engage in devotion was the constant line. So maybe you want to just comment on that part, and then
You mean now?
I mean how it is like that we're actually suffer to the extent that we're not engaged, that we don't have a pure love for Krishna. How does that demonstrate that in fact we're contaminated with this impersonal conception of God or something of the sort?
Yeah. If you read, for example, 10 chapter Shloki Gita, how Krishna describes the Tushanticha Ramanticha. So, Machita Madgata Prana Bodhayanta Parasparam Katyantaschamam Nityam Tushanticha Ramanticha. The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me, their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that it is just like you need to, like the fish needs water, otherwise cannot sustain the life. So in the same way that devotees, the pure devotees, they need to be in contact with Krishna, otherwise they are very disturbed. So in the same way, so we when we experience the personality of the Lord, of Krishna, then we will be on this level. And because for Krishna, everything happens automatically, and personally, whatever he does personally, it is always to please the devotees. This is the only motivation for his action. He says this. I read this recently in one of Prabhupada's purports. When Krishna does something personally, the only desire and motivation behind is because he wants to please the devotees. And if you want to be close to him at heart, this should be also our motivation, our ideal in life. Our activities, whatever we do, should be motivated because we want to please Krishna and the devotees. Then we can be soulmates with Krishna. We can understand one another. Otherwise, and now I'm trying to go back to your question about being impersonal. Otherwise, we're impersonal in a sense that we value objects more than people. And persons, we degrade them to objects because we're not interested so much in the person. We're not interested so much in Krishna as a person, we're more interested in Krishna's energy. And we try to, Hare Krishna, Krishna, thank you very much. And then we go and try to play with his potency, like 99% of the time. And 1% we are offering formal homage to Krishna, Haribo. So this is, I think, part of the problem, and what Prabhupada means by saying that we impersonal means just more materialistic. And we don't have faith in personal relationship. We need more, we have more faith in acquisition, power, prestige, sense gratification, all these superficial material things. We don't have so much faith that personal interaction with Krishna will actually satisfy the soul. This is what I think. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. That was a very nice discussion. Thank you for participating. And I think now we can proceed.
Okay, so now, as most of you know, we have a time now. Of course, it'll be very nice. And then we bottom piece. So stay with us. Hopefully you can try. Mary, could you please help Pandava with the setting up?
Were you going to sit on me? I didn't. Wasn't here. Oh. Do I need a mic? Maybe. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama.
Krishna.
Please, if you don't mind, chant Shingalin prayers.
Shingalin. Oh, okay.
That was amazing. You okay?
Namaste
Hare